August 9th, 2016, Shelburne Select Board meeting to order. Hello. First item is consider approval of the agenda. Anyone have any changes, suggestions for change? Hearing none, someone want to move to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Colleen.
Second.
Seconded by Jerry. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, next item is consider approval of the Select Board meeting minutes of July 26th. Anyone have any comments? Hearing none, someone want to make a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Colleen, seconded by Jerry. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Next up is citizen participation and public comments. This is the time in our agenda. If anyone has anything they'd like to say over which this board has jurisdiction and it is not on tonight's agenda, this is your time to get up and talk about Iowa football.
Yeah,
What-
that's right.
oh, we don't have jurisdiction over that, sorry. Joe's a big Iowa football fan. All right, anyone have anything they'd like to bring up? Okay, next item, select board comments. John, why don't we start with you?
I'm actually good. Everything's good.
Josh?
I'd like to report that in addition to a lot of the emails that have gone to the board and other media, I've also gotten a number of emails and phone calls from Shelburne residents who wanted to make comments on some of the issues that have come before the select board, such as the PAS map, the traffic issues, the legal cost overrun, and the Vermont rail appeal. And I really am fortunate that people are involved, and I'm continue to encourage them to be involved because I think that adds a lot to the select board understanding of what the community thinks. So I would like to encourage everybody to continue that input, and I believe it would hold the same for the rest of the select board, that I'm willing to meet with people individually and bring any comments they have to the select board, because I think this kind of input is always going to be helpful to the town.
Jerry, got anything?
It's too early to know what the turnout was today for the primary election, but not too soon to thank all of the volunteers who assist the town in the election, who spend a great deal of time for most of the day, and I'm sure those of you who have voted have seen them, and all of us thank them for their contribution.
Colleen?
I just wanted to thank Chris Robinson and his entire crew. We had that big water main break on Spear Street, which affected my home, but also 400 homes, other homes in Shelburne. And there are 3 breaks in South Burlington, 1 in Shelburne. And our Shelburne crew was on the scene, quick, had ours dug up and fixed before South Burlington had their first one dug up. Not to slam South Burlington, but the Shelburne crew then went and helped the South Burlington crew. And they worked in 89-degree heat and did a fantastic job. And my daughter and I, while the water main was broken, we went to the Shelburne Beach, and it was lovely and warm and clean, and the lifeguards were polite and on task, and we have a great asset.
Thank you, Colleen. I'm good. Joe, manager's report.
Sure, I have a few things. So, and Jerry can chime in on this, but the town clerk interview committee met once last week, and we're meeting again on Friday, and we've set up interviews for next Monday and Friday. We've decided to interview all 8 applicants that took the time to submit their materials. I think it's safe to say that there was a lot of really strong applicants for the position. It was nice to see, very high quality, all Shelburne residents. So it'll certainly be a difficult task, not just for the committee, but then eventually for the select board too. So I just want to thank all the people who took the time to apply for the town clerk position. To further on what Colleen was talking about with the Spear Street water line, so that's
And it was Chris Carlson. I think I said Chris Robinson.
Carlson. Yes, you did.
Carlson, sorry.
So I guess the last 2 weeks we've been marred by a few different breaks of different pipes, but the Spear Street line, that's either the 6th or 7th break along the Spear Street line since February. So it was already a big issue and something that the Water Commission has been putting a lot of time in and looking at how to solve it. But certainly that is a line that the soils in that area are hot, they're corrosive, and the line is clearly fragile and has been breaking quite often, and it leaves a big section of this community without water. And also, as Colleen was saying, it's not just our section of line. We fixed our section of line, it's back up and running, but we still can't get water to our customers because the South Burlington section had 3 different breaks in it. So it's an issue not just for the Shelburne Water Commission, but also Champlain Water District as well, to work collaboratively on a solution. More to come on that, and the next Water Commission meeting is September 6th, and the entire meeting will be devoted to that. Also, as you've been reading Front Porch Forum, we had a minor sewer line break at the bottom of Falls Road. And it was caught and reported in compliance with the new state law that puts the premium on reporting things over fixing the problem. But we reported it and fixed very quickly. If people are interested in receiving any updates about sewer line breaks, not just in Shelburne, but anywhere, there is a link that the state website has, and it shoots out. So if people are contacting me and they're saying, well, why don't I know immediately? Well, there is a mechanism to know about these breaks immediately, and you sign up through the state. And I think at the last manager's report that I sent out, there's a link there. Anyways, again, I don't want to excuse the fact that we had a sewer line break and some untreated wastewater did go into the La Platte there. At the same time, I think it's maybe an unreasonable expectation if people think that there should never be a sewer line break ever. That's not a reasonable expectation. Whether or not you're running a power utility or a cable internet utility, there's going to be some outages every once in a while. And I think it's more of a compliment to our department that we fixed it so quickly than anything else. I want to also, the board knows this, but this is the first time I'm saying this publicly, and there'll be more known about this, but we're planning a retirement party and open house for Colleen Haig, who is busy with her final election today. And that's going to be Thursday, September 15th at the Pizza Galley Center up at the Shelburne Museum. It's going to be open to the public, and we've also have a lot of special guests that have been invited, and there'll be some nice awards and things like that for Colleen, and certainly going to be a nice night, not just for Colleen, but for the entire community. And we will make sure to get invitations out very soon. Let's see, to follow up on last meeting with the village traffic concerns, we have a meeting scheduled next week with some of those neighbors and engineers from the Regional Planning Commission. So we got on that as quickly as possible and to see if there's any solutions. I want to draw the board's attention, the public, to the investment that we made last year in revamping the website. This last month, every month we hit a new record. This last month we had over 10,000 hits to the Shelburne website. If you want to compare that to the old website, I think our highest monthly total, according to Betty, was about 1,500. So that's a great investment, and people are not just accessing the website to find out information about Shelburne governance, which of course is important. We have a lot of information there, but people are accessing it, what we're seeing from the statistics, to find out tourism attractions and business activities, and that actually there's a really heavy percentage of people who are using it to find out. So it's going to help not just governance, but the entire community, the business community. So it's certainly, I think it's a worthwhile investment that we've made in that new website, and a lot of credit, of course, is to Betty Marcher, who manages it extremely well. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next item is item number 7. It's a presentation and update on the new library and the town center project. We have one member of the select board who has played and continues to play an integral part in this. That's Colleen Parker. So I've asked Colleen to please take the lead on this.
So as many of you know, that the temporary location for our town library has, we've exceeded its ability to provide for the uses of the library in the town. And about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, we, between the Selectboard and the Board of Trustees, we formed the Library Steering Committee. And on the committee sits a member of the Board of Trustees, Laura Keenan, the librarian, Joe, and I, and to try and determine exactly how best to go about fulfilling the needs of the library in a cost-efficient manner. And the next step in our process has been to interview and retain the services of an architectural firm, and we went forward with the Vermont Integrated Architecture, VIA. And the next step of this is for them to give us a feedback and for us to receive a presentation from VIA. And they've already started to engage the public and obtain feedback as to what individual concerns and needs are by each individual member. I'll turn this over to Laura. Would you like to say something here in a minute? And then prior to that, also just to announce that on September 20th, between 6 and 8 p.m. at the Shelburne Vineyard, there will be a large community meeting or a charrette. In order to gain more feedback, there will be 3 design options for people to be able to view and to comment on. And trust me, all these comments are listened to, interpreted, feedback, and recorded. Okay, Laura?
My name is Laura Keenan. I'm the librarian here in town and the chair of the steering committee, who is, for the public's knowledge, running a concurrent meeting with you because there is a quorum of us here today. So VIA has been amazing since we hired them. They've been engaging the public. They have spoken to every single one of my staff members to get feedback from them. They've spoken to me extensively. As you know, I've been talking with people in the community over the past 3 years to get input and insights into this, and I've been sharing all that with them. They will continue to engage the public in several different ways, online, in person, various meetings of various sizes. And they're here today to present to you some initial information that they've discovered at the very beginning stages of their progress. So I believe the main speaker tonight will be the lead of VIA, Andrea.
Hi.
So I brought some boards and things to share. I'm not sure what the best way to do this is.
How does
She'll need
there?
the
You might be on.
might want
There you go.
You start this.
Good. Yes. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you for having us here. My name is Andrea Murray, and I'm principal and founder of Vermont Integrated Architecture, and I have with me here architectural designer Nick Wood, who is also working on the project with us. And I see a lot of familiar faces here this evening. We had a community visioning session a couple of weeks ago where we asked what not just should the library be, but what is the potential for this community center, this complex? If we're going to go ahead and try and create a new library situation for you folks, what else can we do to benefit this center in the process? So can we look at the historic town hall and look at improvements there? Can we look at the site in general, and are there ways to make it function more effectively? Can we add special places outside, green spaces? Can we make the best use of this incredibly strategic property, I'm learning, that we're sitting on right now? So at our visioning session, we heard a lot from all of you and from other members of the community, and we came up with a vision statement, and this is very much in draft form, and I have sent this to Joe and Laura, and I'm hoping that it can be posted for the community to react to. If you don't mind, I just really quickly read it, because I'm sure you can't read it from way back there. But it touches on kind of, or I should say it synthesizes and it's kind of summarizes what we discussed that day. So the vision statement for the project is the town of Shelburne imagines a project that is visionary as it becomes a dynamic and inclusive community hub, a place for civic conversation, community building, and individual growth. It represents and provides a wide variety of opportunities, resources, and services for the entire community and is ultimately well used and well loved by the community. Welcomes and nurtures all the people of the town and its visitors. Demonstrates long-term thinking and carefully considers both the town's history and its future, the value of its heritage and history to future generations. It unifies the many facilities and uses housed on the site. It exhibits and teaches the importance of sustainability and energy efficiency. It incorporates a new library that will be considered architecturally the crown jewel of the village. That phrase is not, those are not my words. Preserves and makes relevant for future use its historic town hall. Provides the opportunity to expand community cultural activities, such as displays of resident artwork, performances, food events, etc. Demonstrates durability in new construction and renovations while being affordable to construct, operate, and maintain. Accommodates a variety of programs and uses while being flexible and adaptable to the changing needs of the community going forward. Fits its context of Shelburne Village while being serendipitous and delightful. Encourages community involvement in its design and construction, thereby promoting support for the project and pride for the village center, and ultimately becomes indispensable to the everyday lives of the residents of Shelburne. Lofty goal, right?
Can you say serendipity again?
You like that? Serendipitous. That word came up several times in our visioning session, and I think it's important. You know what I've been learning over the last several years, specifically about libraries. Libraries are not just places where we house books anymore. They are critical community centers. They are probably one of the only places in our communities where the elderly and young people come together, where people of means and people who are needy come together, and there are no stigmas. There are no concerns or inhibitions about occupying those spaces. Libraries are free. They provide essential services for people who may not have computers. For the elderly or lonely people who have no place to go in the community, just need to get out of the house, as well as all the important educational and programmatic things they share with our community. So I think that your library is so much more, has the potential to be so much more, and in rethinking it now, we're hoping to kind of hear what Shelburne needs and wants and hopes to get out of this process. So if you want to wordsmith this or have any ideas or want me to use the word serendipitous more, I will be happy to do that. But that's a start. And there's a needs statement that goes along with this that talks about the condition of the existing facility. This is hard to read also, so I'm just going to go to the pretty pictures for starters here. When we're designing a project for a community like yours, it's important that this project be a reflection of your community, not my vision. Your architect is a translator who hopefully has some design sense as well. So we're helping you navigate this process, but we need to take some time to really get to know who you are and what this place is called Shelburne. I'm a lifelong Vermonter. I've lived here all my life, but not in Shelburne. So I understand what Vermont is all about, and I understand what community is about, but I'm learning what Shelburne is all about. So the first thing we did is we took kind of really big picture view, and it occurred to me tonight, we've been here all afternoon looking around, that I actually like it to be an even bigger picture view, because I know, the supermarket's down here and there are other critical community centers already. But right now, just to orient all of you, this is Route 7 Shelburne Road here. This is the municipal building, and we're right about here this evening. And highlighted or emphasized here is this property that you all occupy. And so what we're looking at are patterns on this property and then patterns that radiate out further. We are interested in what is the walkable distance from your center here. It's not all new libraries get to stay in their walkable downtown, and it's pretty cool that you guys are going to try and make this work in your walkable downtown. That means that students from the community school can make it, and many residents all along and who live in the downtown can make it on foot to the library and this whole center. This blue line represents a quarter-mile distance. And so a quarter mile is, if any of you are planners, I see one just walked in the room.
There's one.
Perfect timing. So the new urbanists will say that a quarter mile is the walkable distance that pretty much anybody will do and not complain about it. And so we like to show this because it gives you a sense of the radius of your walkable population. The red represents sort of the critical arteries for vehicular traffic that are really close to the site, with some arrows that show the main approaches into the site. And I know I wasn't supposed to show this one, or we weren't supposed to show this one, but I stood out there for like 20 minutes, and maybe it's because it's election day, but boy, there's a lot of traffic going through there. Railroad traffic going through there, whatever. But so it is an important axis for you folks. And then just started to, these are places that we have observed as critical centers or other buildings that might be landmarks that people see as you drive through the community. Visual cues. And we want your next library, because you want it to be the crown jewel, to be one of those centers, one of those visual hubs. So we're thinking about where there are views to the site. So this is sort of our broad brush analysis. Yeah. So this drawing here starts to become the base map that we will use as we do some master planning for the site, because it'd be really great to solve some other issues on the site while we're also designing a new building, rehabilitating the historic town hall, that sort of thing. Nature is a wonderful example. There's nothing in nature that only performs one function. If you can perform one or two or three or four things with whatever act you engage, then there's a great opportunity to increase the value of whatever you are doing. So that's what we hope to do here. And I know that you folks have come up with the great idea of, what if we shift this driveway over so that the fire station has a direct egress out onto the main drag, and possibly consider a site adjacent for a new structure. And that's a wonderful way to think about how can we do more than one thing at a time. Yeah. So other things and other assets you have on your site that we're starting to think about are natural assets. And so this is the same area, here enlarged, but we're starting to think about the sun and the wind, and where do you have green space already? So when we're designing in Vermont, we want to take advantage of the sun most of the year. And we can do all sorts of great things with buildings to help make them more energy efficient, more delightful and pleasant to occupy when we know where the sun is. So in this case, the summer sun kind of rises here way in the northeast, and it travels around the site this way and sets here in the northwest. In the winter, the path of the sun, as all of you know, is much shorter, and the altitude, the height of it in the sky is much lower as well. So we think about that when we're designing. We also know that the prevailing winds here in the winter come from the northwest. Not always, we get nor'easters, but we do design and tend to think about turning our backs to those northwesterly winds, and in the summer, inviting the southwesterly winds in. And I think that there's a little bit of a hill here, so you may not get as much of that southwesterly breeze in the summer as well, but we want to try and incorporate that too. And then looking at what you have for green space. The first thing that we notice, here are the ball fields, here's the little island you folks have right out here. But there's a lot of green space also right along Route 7, and that's lovely. Having green space along Shelburne Road actually helps slow down the traffic and buffers the noise. So that's a really good thing. But these spaces here, I think, are really underutilized. And I think that's another reason why we might consider putting a building there. I was watching people, a lot of people on your site today, and people who are hanging out, were actually hanging out in the protected area here, obviously because they're coming in to vote and socializing as they're going in and out. Here, to some extent here, and also in the spaces sort of toward the back of the existing library. So we spent some time hanging out here to find out why nobody was there. And it is noisy. It's pretty noisy. It feels somewhat exposed. And so thinking of how we can better utilize this space might be a direction for us, and replacing that green space elsewhere on the site or distributing it a little more evenly might be something we think about as we're organizing a plan. Finally, we map traffic patterns and parking. I have yet to work on a municipal project in Vermont where parking isn't a big issue. And I was psyched to be here today because voting, I'm sure this is a high point in terms of traffic on the site. There was a baseball game or practice going on out back. I was sort of in a sick way hoping there'd be a fire. There wasn't. They opened their doors. It was pretty exciting. But you know, it was scary. And there were people walking across, just like the blue dots show. That's pedestrian traffic. And there were cars coming in and out. And it was a little unnerving. And there were children. And so how can we organize? You know, if you look here, you have, you guys know this. I probably don't even need to tell any of you this, but these were our observations. You know, the red lines are vehicles, the yellow lines are emergency vehicles, and the blue dots are pedestrian patterns that we noticed. So we're thinking about all of this, and how can we tidy up the patterns and make them safer and more enjoyable? How can we create places to stop and pause along the pathway, that sort of thing. So that's part of the architecture job of helping design this new place. And then looking at where there are parking opportunities on and around the site. That's what the bright pink is all about. And so finally, we get to a point where we're thinking about master planning for the site, and we ask ourselves the question, where are there still buildable areas on your site. And this doesn't necessarily have to be for a library, but where are there places that a structure could go, thinking long term. And, you know, there's this site here, which is up on Shelburne Road. I know that's the site we're kind of prioritizing to some extent. There is still area behind where the existing library addition is, perhaps to the side to some extent, or to the back. I don't know what goes there. And there's also a place here, not encroaching on the ball fields, but potentially creating more of a complex here and a courtyard quadrangle type of space. So those are our observations. And, you know, all we need is for a group of people to protest on one of these, and we won't, you know, we'll ask why. They each have their advantages and disadvantages. And yeah, so that's kind of where we are in the process. I should say we've also gone through another exercise, as Laura mentioned, of interviewing staff and getting to know the library specifically and exploring the historic town hall, understanding what its needs are, and developing a program. And the program is the document that says you need this much space for your adult collection, you need this much space for children, you need a, you know, kitchen in the historic town hall, etc. So we're starting to come up with some quantitative information about the project, not just kind of qualitative information. So in the next 3 to 4 weeks, we'll be developing some concept designs. We'll continue to engage the community and ask for input. And those designs will be on display, as you mentioned, at the Shelburne Vineyard. And I will warn you ahead of time that we do not expect anybody to come in and say, I love that one, or I love that one, or I love that one. We're hoping to try some different things in each of those designs, and people will say, I love the children's area and that outdoor space adjacent to it, or I love the way this looks out onto the whatever it is. You know, so we're hoping to get feedback that we will then sort of synthesize and bring together into a cohesive design that hopefully does a really good job of representing who you are and what you hope to see in a design for your whole complex. So, sorry, that was really long-winded, but
I thought it was great.
Yeah, it was great.
questions? Thank you.
Sure.
Questions or thoughts?
Thank you so much for coming in and for doing this presentation. And one of the things that I think that the Board of Trustees, the Steering Committee, and the Select Board really wanted to emphasize was the community involvement. And one of the, I think the biggest reasons that VIA was chosen was their not just welcoming that input, but embracing it and pursuing it right out of the gate.
Thank
Does
you.
anyone else have any questions? Or should we open up to the
Or ideas. I mean, so this is a great place. If you have something, I mean, some of the people were at the visioning statement, or visioning session, but not everybody. I'd love to hear if you have any things you'd like us to pursue.
Are you open to questions from the audience?
Absolutely.
If you don't mind just using the microphone and identifying yourself for our
Maxie
viewership.
Ewens. I used to be on the library board a long time ago. I'm also on the...
It wasn't that long ago.
It seems like a long time ago. I'm also on the State Library Board, just to give you my credentials. I used to be the head librarian of the Fletcher Free Library. Thank you for a wonderful presentation. Excellent. And you probably know that we have been planning this for years and years and years. Is there a way to put a price tag, or is that too early to ask? Thank you.
Good question. Everyone wants to know what it's going to cost. That is part of our process, and we do our programming exercise and we do a quick check of where that's tending, and that will be a conversation with Joe and the steering committee to see if we need to refine that. But then we will develop 3 options that are within that budget range that both the steering committee and even the fundraising consultant thinks is reasonable. And we will have a cost estimator, an independent cost estimator, estimate those options so that you do know what it costs. And that is coming fairly quickly. That will be in the next couple of months. So I don't have a number for you right now, but it's really important that we have a number, and we care about your money. Architects sometimes have these grand visions and don't know what things cost, but we pride ourselves in knowing what things cost early in the process and making sure that first number we present to the community is a number that we can actually live with. And so it won't just be the cost of construction, it will be the cost of all the things associated, whether it's new technology you need in the library, or furnishings you might need, or window shades, or any legal fees or clerk of the works that might be associated, the design fees. We call it a total project budget. So whatever number we show you early on is going to be the target number that we go with, and it's the one that we're going to manage to all the way through, and it won't be changed unless someone here in your community changes it or on your steering committee for some reason.
So I have a question. You talked a little bit about the green space along the frontage of the existing complex, I'll call it.
Mm-hmm.
And, have you kind of done enough research to see what the, say, 10-year vision of that corridor is from the state point of view? The reason I mention it is not too far down the road now in Ferrisburg, Charlotte, there's a fairly major widening of Route 7 taking place.
Yeah.
And, I think we'd be naive to not think that may be starting to come this direction at some point.
Yep, I actually asked that question today of our civil engineer. Some of you may know Peter Gibbs. He's working on our team. He's a resident here in Shelburne, and he actually asked the question of VTrans. He asked about the widening that happened to the north, 10 years ago or so, mm-hmm. and wondered why they stopped when they got to the bridge. And the bridge is pretty wide itself, too, so it makes you wonder, were they planning something to come further south? And VTrans said they ran out of money with that project. Which gives the impression that they have plans to come south, but they were holding their cards apparently pretty close to their chest and didn't say anything except that the residents of Shelburne really didn't want to widen Route 7 in the village because of noise and traffic patterns already, and that they like sort of the quaintness of more of a main street coming through the village. So that's the feedback I have right now. I sent Peter back to push them a little bit further. I know that doesn't completely answer your question, but we're thinking about it.
Yeah, I think that you need to consider some alternative in that case, so kind of a sticky that can be peeled off just to show what it might look like. But,
yeah.
It is a reality. A lot of people in Charlotte said the same thing, that, that'll never happen out here.
Yeah.
So it's happening. But,
Yeah.
And I don't think it's imminent, but, I think we all ought to be aware if, we're talking about putting a structure closer to the roadway, we really should consider that impact.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Well, thank you for this opportunity, and any questions you have or feedback you want to give to us, we'd love to have it through Joe or Laura. It's probably the easiest way.
Andrea, thanks again.
Thanks.
And hopefully we'll see a good turnout on the 20th.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Colleen. Our next item is item number 8. The annual CBC report from the Cemetery Commission.
We're a little early for them, so it's possible.
So they're not here yet, are they?
It's possible. They knew 8 o'clock.
All right. Do we have Deb here?
Nope.
Nope.
I think they'll probably all come together.
Okay, secret agent stuff. Why don't we jump, if it's okay with everyone, down to 11?
Yeah.
Which is consider approving a municipal note with the Bank of Middlebury for the purchase of a replacement dump truck for $95,000 with an interest rate of 1.02% and a term of 1 year. Joe?
I think this is pretty typical. I think Peter does a good job. This is a new truck. Instead of taking out a 5 or 7 year note with interest rates as they are, he's just been taking out 1 year notes, and then we just keep taking out 1 year notes until the vehicle's paid, and at 1% interest, that's not too shabby. So this is in the capital plan. It was part of the budget and just purchased. So that's it.
Okay.
So,
Does anyone have any comments about this?
move to approve a municipal note with the Bank of Middlebury for the purchase of a dump truck in the amount of $95,000 with an interest rate of 1.02% and a term of 1 year.
Moved by Colleen, seconded
I'll second.
by John. Any comments by anyone? Rocco, you have anything to say about the dump truck? Nothing. You like your trucks? Doug, you good with that? Okay, good. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. I was vamping there a bit. All right, next item, since we're,
Probably can do 12, except Jerry has. to
Stuart,
step
do you
out
have
for a
more
second.
people coming from the cemetery commission, you think?
Ron will be coming.
Okay, so why don't we wait a bit? Let's go to number 12, if everyone on the board is good with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Jerry's.
I'm recused.
Yes, Jerry, thank you. Jerry's recusing himself because he sat on the DRB at the time this matter appeared before the DRB. This item is consideration and potential approval of the formal settlement agreement resolving litigation in the Environmental Division of the Vermont Superior Court with APC Property LLC and the Wild Rose Circle homeowners. This is a litigation that's been ongoing for quite some time. It involves the Colette's furniture store and their U-Haul business. The neighbors on Wild Rose Circle became involved, and we had two mediations with the town, the neighbors, and the Colettes, and we reached agreements both times. First agreement needed some tweaking, and so we tweaked it. And this has been before us before, but we just received all the signatures. So I think this, at this stage, is pretty much a pro forma approval.
Yeah.
Is there any comments, any questions from anyone?
Good progress.
Very happy that we were able to reach an agreement and a resolution on this.
Ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, move to approve the formal settlement agreement resolving litigation in the Environmental Division of Vermont Superior Court with APC Property LLC and the Wild Rose Circle homeowners, and to authorize the Select Board Chair to execute the settlement agreement.
Moved by Colleen, seconded by John, a second before Josh is not. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right.
Someone grab Jerry.
Thank you.
All right, I guess we'll go to 13 then.
Yeah, you got it.
Are we having people from the Ethics Committee come in tonight? No? Okay. He's a secret agent.
I talked to Lee and he was excited. I talked to Lee and he was.
You went to vote for the 3rd time today.
I'll tell you about this a little later. All right, we could call the meeting to order because Mike Regan just arrived.
How are you, Jerry?
Good, Mike, it's good to see you.
Likewise.
Had an 80 yesterday, Mike. All right, we're going to turn as we wait for the rest of the Cemetery Commission to get here. Are we ready to go?
Yep.
All right. Let's then go to item number 8, the annual CBC, that stands for Commission, Board, and Committee.
I have a question, Gary. Can Deb go first so that if she has something to say afterwards?
Certainly. I'm good with that. All right. If the rest of the board is good with, yeah, if everyone here is good with that, we'd like to take number 9 before number 8. Is that everybody on the board okay with that?
Yep.
Okay, so we'll do number 9, which is consider appointing a new member to the Cemetery Commission, and that's Deb Belcher. And Deb, if you could please step up to the mic, tell us something about yourself and why you'd like to serve on the
Can you hear me
commission.
with this at this?
Yeah, you can lower it
Yeah.
if you'd like. You can take it
off,
out, dance
That's
with it,
okay.
whatever you feel comfortable with.
Hi, I'm Deb Belcher. I live in Heinsberg, actually, but I happened to bump into Ron Gagnon this past spring in the cemetery, of all places. We got to chatting. One of the things I've been doing as a hobby for quite a few years, started out with my own family history and genealogy, and kind of have evolved over time to volunteer for a project that's been around probably for 10 plus years. It's really what they would call a all-volunteer or crowdsourcing site for, it's called Find a Grave, which basically is folks all over the world. You know, we'll take pictures of stones or memorials, they call them memorial pages, and post. So, though I don't have family in Vermont, I've lived here a long time and have kind of taken it on myself to build on the work that a lot of other people in Vermont have already done. So that's kind of my interest in the Cemetery Commission, is really that process of remembering people. And also I've walked a lot of cemeteries, and to me they're very relaxing, calm places. I think of people and, again, share with folks that maybe aren't here but have family here. So that's where my interest is. I've been working for quite a while in healthcare software. I worked previously at GE and then formerly IDX before that, and actually moved to Vermont to work what's now morphed into the University of Vermont Health Network. I came to Vermont to work there, so my background's been in healthcare, but a lot in IT systems and operations, finance, dealt a lot with regulations. So I think I have some skills to offer.
So
the
you're here
commission.
basically because Ron roped you into it.
Actually, I was fascinated. You know, like I said, it's been a hobby, and it's interesting where life takes you, but this is of great interest to me, and I think I could offer some skills.
Thank you. Does anyone on the
to
board
the
have any questions or comments for Deb?
You've traced your own genealogy?
Yes, which was very interesting, because my husband's family is very old New Englanders, so they were kind of easy, and his family had started before. When I started myself, I just knew my grandparents, and was able to trace 4 lines. Some, they're from Massachusetts, Gloucester. Both of those families, one came to their, so really I'm I guess a second generation American. All the great grandparents immigrated here from Finland, Newfoundland, New Brunswick, previously New France, and England. So it's a mixed bag. But again, these sites have really helped me to find that information. And it's something else I also like, I would be willing to help other people do if there's interest.
I just noticed that you are from Heinsberg.
Mhm.
I do know that statutorily the Cemetery Commission has its own set of rules. I am unaware if there's any rules off the top of my head that require residency in Shelburne, but I'm unaware, so I'm guessing there aren't. And I see Ron raising his hand. And Ron, who's one of his beautiful daughters, just got married. Do you have an answer, Ron?
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. There's nothing that prevents the select board from appointing her to the commission. I think that it's unusual that we try to keep it as Shelburne residents,
Right.
but this position's been open for a little while, and she clearly has an interest, uniquely qualified to be on this commission, and so I think it makes a lot of sense.
Great. Anyone else have any comments? Anyone here, any comments? This is for a term Joe, that begins when?
Now?
Begins
Begins
with-
now and it ends in, I don't have,
March
2019,
31st,
I believe.
2019?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, would someone like to make a motion?
So move to appoint Deborah Belcher to the Shelburne Cemetery Commission for a term starting today and ending never. March 31st, 2019.
Moved by Colleen, seconded by Josh. Any further discussion? Thank you very much for
You're
applying.
welcome. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, Deb.
Thank you.
All right, now we can turn to item number 8, and this is the most moving of items we've had in a while. This is our annual CBC Committee Board Commission report from the Cemetery Commission. It's intended to foster dialogue between boards, so we can learn how the Select Board can help all the boards, how the other boards can help the Select Board, how boards can help each other, and to foster an openness, transparency, and civility. So Stuart, are you the one who's going to come on up and talk to us? And you can identify yourself as...
Ron would help out.
I will if need be.
So I'm
This is-
Stuart Morrow, Cemetery Commissioner.
If Stuart, do you mind using the mic? You can take it out and sit down if you want.
I wasn't really prepared to do this, but we will work on it. Ron can help me. So basically, the Cemetery Commission, we have 3 cemeteries in town. The Village Cemetery is the most visible and the most active because we don't, very little in the Spear Street and the West Cemetery, which is on the Webb Estate. So with a limited budget, we just try to maintain the cemeteries the best we can. We do lot sales to Shelburne residents and record that in all burials information we record. So the second question about diversity, which was a little comical to us being in Shelburne, but we felt we were quite diverse. And so the answer is educated woman, men, Republicans, Democrats, a lesbian, a land surveyor, salesperson, retired pastor, and a property manager. So I guess we figured that at that time there was 4 of us. We were somewhat diverse according to the definition. What have we accomplished? The bylaws, yeah, they were almost 50 years old, so we updated the bylaws. We're in the process of updating the bylaws. Last year, we updated the rules and regulations. And we've done some physical improvements. The drainage ditch on the west side of the culvert down in the ditch, we improved that. We're limited. I'm a little conservative, and some people like to think that's a park and we can do everything, and I'm a little conservative, so ever since, it's almost been 20 years, we get about 5,000 capital improvements, and I try to hold it to that. We have, in the past, we've had unexpected tree damage that is costly to remove, but so we're limited in what we can do financially, but it's still just a cemetery. We're maxed out on the current layout, so we're expanding the lot layout.
Let me jump in here, okay, Stuart? Tell me about your employees. How many employees do you have, and is that working out okay?
Actually, we like to have 3. We have 2 this summer. and they're putting in a few extra hours, but it seems to be working out. Employment is a problem for part-time, and we've been fortunate, but.
So let me ask you about the computer system. I know we've had this issue, and I think it's been totally resolved, that the software has been moved over, so the town has a copy of it.
The town, it's on the town server, and hopefully with this new member, this new commissioner, we can get it so it's,
She's going to bring us up to date.
well.
We're going to be a leader in cemetery IT
That's
software.
one of our projects, to do that.
Yes,
Yes.
to be honest, yes. To have met Deb this spring, was it spring or?
Can you grab the mic?
It's for the TV.
It's for the TV. You know, Ron, we get 4,000 people every minute tuning in, brand new. Just for you.
Watching a different station. To have met Deb and then her background, to have a hobby for cemeteries and then software, it's like we hit the gold pot. So we are very pleased to have Deb with us. She can teach us so much. She came to one of our meetings, 2 meetings ago, I believe, probably spent an hour and a half just on things I'll only speak for myself. I did not know, and having only been on board for 3-4 years, whatever it is, very, very pleased to have Deb coming on board with us so she can take us with the software. We're actually hoping maybe we can convert to one where there is no cost associated with it, but we do not know yet. So.
Great. And for the record, it's Ron Gagnon, who also a
sorry.
member of the Cemetery Commission. Does anyone on the board have any questions, comments, or does anyone here have anything they'd like to know about Shelburne Cemetery?
I will just compliment you. Every Saturday when we visit the farmers market, people out of state, out of country, from Canada, always talk about the condition and how nice and tranquil and peaceful it is over here. I think we live here somewhat take it for granted, but lots of people, will get something at the farmers market and go sit under the trees and eat lunch. They always appreciate it, and I hear it every week. So you should, take some solace, and people really appreciate what you do.
Well, we do receive a lot of compliments on the grounds, and but the majority of our budget is for the mowing.
Right.
And so it's thankful the town supports the cemetery.
Right.
We have a statutory obligation to do so in the state of Vermont.
Yeah, but I've talked to other towns, and they're not as generous as Shelburne. It's nice.
We're a nice town, Stuart.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
All right, since the paths were set for 8:05, and why don't we jump to item 13, in case someone is going to come in the next 5 minutes. If everyone on the board okay with that?
Yep.
All right, so item 13 is consider warning a special select board meeting for September 14th for the ethics seminar. And Joe, remind me, what time would that be?
I guess I was assuming we'd do it at 7 o'clock, but haven't determined. I guess I was just thinking in my head it'd be at 7 o'clock, 7 to 9 or something like that.
Okay, so we'll think it's 7 o'clock unless otherwise notified. This is something that the select board has embraced starting 2 years ago. We have many boards in town. We want to encourage every volunteer on every board to know the rules, what the open meeting laws are, what public records are, what you can do with your emails, what you can't do with your emails, what your conversations can be outside of meetings. And we formed, so we held seminars each of the last 2 years. Last year we passed the ethics ordinance, the amended ethics ordinance at town meeting. And so this year we have looked to the ethics committee to take a lead in presenting the seminar this year. So Joe, you want to jump in and?
Yeah, we had a meeting in late June with the ethics committee, and also the town attorney, Brian Monahan, was involved in that meeting as well. And our main goal for this training, not to disparage the trainings of the past 2 years, because I think they were very helpful, but our main goal was to make this training fun, interactive, with a lot of hypotheticals. And so it wouldn't be our town attorney just up there with a PowerPoint or kind of going on and on about state statutes and this and that, but it would be really interactive where we work through problems, maybe hypotheticals that are, pretty relevant to things that are happening now, and, debate and try to figure out what the answers are. So it's geared to be entertaining and energizing for people.
Great. Does anyone have any comments on the board? Does anyone here have anything they'd like to add? This is, again, something we're trying to do, is fostering being open and transparent and civil. All right. So let's turn to...
Can you do the warning?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Let's get a motion.
Move to set special select board meeting for September 8th from 7 to 9 for the annual ethics seminar.
Second.
Moved by Colleen, seconded by Jerry. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're rocking and rolling on September 14th. Yankees will probably be 20 games out of first place by then, right? All right, item number 10 is consider scheduling a decision item or items for a date in the future. The agenda says August 23rd, 2016. We might have an issue with that date. Proposing possible amendment or amendments to Shelburne's Comprehensive Plan. Proposal developed by the Planning Commission would replace existing priority paths and sidewalk maps with revised maps. I'm going to ask everyone to remember we're all neighbors, and let's everyone please be civil. I'm going to turn this over to Joe to give a little background. Thanks.
Sure, I'll real quick, and then maybe Dean can provide some additional thoughts. So the motion that the Select Board is being asked to consider tonight, at least staff's recommended motion, is simply to set August 23rd, although I've learned recently that might not be the best date, so we might have to pick a different date, but to set a decision item where the Select Board will consider 4 proposed motions, and those proposed motions are listed in this annotated note. I'm not going to go through these in detail. I can, but motion A that we would be asking the Select Board to consider would basically be to approve all the map with all of the paths that are non-controversial. That would be the first motion that you would consider. And then motions B, C, and D, which would be all also considered the same evening that we do motion A, would be consideration of the ones that have been brought up as, I'm just calling them controversial. So you would start by potentially adopting the less controversial maps, and then you would work through a progression of considering the other ones that have been discussed. And at the end of the meeting, you're going to have a map made up of a certain number of paths.
Great, thanks. Now, did you want to ask Dean to...
Well, I think Dean, I'm guessing not everyone has read Dean's analogy in these notes, but I think it actually is worth maybe a 5-minute explanation from Dean procedurally, 5 minutes or less, in terms of where we are and how to think of, he's out.
Yeah, I thought he was running away.
He brought the lemon.
It may be a good way of thinking about the August 23rd and what may end up being the September 13th meeting.
Let me take my single malt out so we can do it together.
So
to clue people to the inside joke, there was a meeting last week, and I used the analogy of a pitcher filled with water to try to convey the point. Joe liked it, and he said, "Write that up," and that's what he was including in the Select Board's agenda. To set the stage, the Planning Commission, under statute, prepares amendments to the town plan. If a proposal to amend the town plan is approved by the Planning Commission after 2 public hearings, then a proposal is sent to the Select Board. And the law says that a Select Board can adopt it. It can change the proposal, but if it changes the proposal, it has to warn an additional hearing. So the story with the pitcher is that we've had a proposal developed by the Planning Commission that came to the Select Board, and the law says, like I said before, you can change it, but you've got to warn a hearing. Well, the proposal was this pitcher of water, and about a month ago, 6 weeks ago, when the Select Board adopted some motions or considered some motions, one of the things it did was it approved a motion saying yes to part of the proposal. It didn't have anything to do with bike and pedestrian maps. It was non-controversial. So the board essentially started pouring water out of the pitcher. And so now we're left with a pitcher that's roughly half full. And the analogy that I've given is that there are a bunch of people sitting at a table and they're thirsty, and the people who are thirstiest, we should just fill their glasses first. And I'm comparing that to the parts of the map. And did Joe include in the Select Board packets the 4 maps that I made?
I didn't include the maps, I included your
Okay.
You
your
included the chart that showed
Yeah.
which of them were controversial
Okay.
and which were not.
But essentially, there are maps that go along with this. But my thinking was, after Joe and I spoke about this, was that the thing for the Select Board to consider doing is the easy stuff. That's pouring the water to the people who have the biggest glasses and who are thirstiest. And that's to take care of the 19 odd or 18 odd projects that are not controversial. And there is a table that was included in the manager's report that has those non-controversial items listed, and we can list them out if people want them to. And then what we proposed simply was, after we've poured out a good chunk of the pitcher, if that gets approved, then to consider pouring out glass by glass the 3 controversial projects, and that the board would vote on this. The reason why it's significant is that, in my estimation, the proposal, which the law says you can change, but you can't start acting on it until you've warned another hearing, the proposal you've already started pouring water out of. So I don't believe that you can change it. And I use the analogy that sometimes you bring a pitcher of water to a table, and if people say, I'd like lemon, well, you can go back to the bartender and get lemon and squeeze it, and that's like getting another hearing. But the water or the fluid in the pitcher has to be the same. And since we've already started pouring water out of the pitcher, we're not in a position of changing the proposal, which is why really it's an all or nothing thing. We can pour more water out, and if something is if somebody says, we want water, that's analogous to the Select Board saying, we would like to say yes to something. We pour that water out. They can, in the end, leave water in. So what essentially they've done is they haven't changed the fact that the Planning Commission gave them a pitcher of water. They've just decided that at the very end, they might leave some of the water in it. And that's what we're trying to do. So if there are disagreements about how you want to break out the projects, then that's something for you to consider. But I understood tonight was just procedural.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, does anyone on the board have anything they'd like to say? And thank you for the analogy. Looks great. If you haven't read it, you should really read it.
You really should read
It's
it.
like a story. Josh?
It may be, but I'm still not completely clear about what the choices we have here and how the process would move forward. So I'm not quite sure how to
What we're doing, let me try to clarify it. What staff has proposed we do is set as a decision item at a meeting, which would either be August 23rd, but it appears it might be September 13th simply because some select board members are not going to be here on the 23rd. That's the only reason. That we have it as a decision item, every single path. We consider in one motion all those paths that are not controversial. If they're not controversial, in all likelihood, they'll probably pass. And then, for each of the paths that are controversial, we'll still hear them at the same meeting. But some board member might vote yes, another board member might vote no, and that way we get to go through every single one. Everyone has notice, everyone has an opportunity to be heard, and we go forward with a decision on every single path, assuming we have the time to get through all of them.
So is there an option to approve all of the paths at once, as supported by the Paths Committee and the Planning Commission?
We have the opportunity to approve every single path.
No, in one package. I mean, in
Not
one-
under this staff recommendation.
Not in this recommendation.
But is that a possibility? That's what I'm asking. Is there any reason why we couldn't have a motion to do that?
There's no reason that you can't make a motion to do that, but if you are doing that, you are, based on the people on this board who expressed their beliefs the last time, you are setting that motion up for failure, because they would have to agree with every single path for that to pass.
Correct. And I was just bringing that up based on the information we got from the Paths Committee, that would be their preferred option, is to have one vote that would approve the map as presented on the May, can't remember what the date, when it came out of the Planning Commission. So I think, given having respect for what the Planning Commission, the Paths Committee and the Planning Commission has already accomplished, I think there is a good rationale that we would have, that would give the opportunity for them for us to vote on their recommendation.
Anyone have any comments?
It seems to contradict what staff has proposed here for us to do, and as I recollect back to the last meeting, what we see in front of us is what we agreed we would have staff put together for us to consider. So I think that we're where we thought we would be from that perspective. I think if we go back to what you're thinking, Josh, we're actually going backwards, and I don't know, I can't, till I think about it, I can't tell you, how that would go, but to me, it seems to move forward and create, an accepted plan in the town. We should follow what staff has given us to consider at this point. So.
Okay, Colleen and Jerry, please, why don't you go where that.
Josh, I agree where your thinking is. And 2 meetings ago, and even last meeting, I would have been okay with just approving basically what the Planning Commission and the Paths Committee had spent time and put together for us. But I think that we've proven that it's not going to go forward with that, and so now I'm more focused on what can we proceed with. And for me, again, the biggest problem is going to be the Shelburne Museum path. But Dean, I have a question for you. This was brought up, I think, at the last meeting, and you had said about the idea that this is aspirational, and we understand that there are paths across private property. Are there other paths that aren't marked as controversial on this list that also cross private property?
No, there isn't.
Dean, if you could, if you don't mind responding.
The projects that were identified as controversial didn't reflect any analysis on my part of what things were on private land. It was based on having been told or having heard what the projects that were contentious are. So I didn't attempt to go any further in identifying what projects were considered controversial. I was simply trying to reflect what the discussion had said the controversial projects are.
Okay, and basically, I think where I was going with my thinking is there's probably going to be other paths that may not get built, at least the way that they're drawn right now, because they're on private property, and that's because it's going to go through another process where those paths are warned and people come in, and we basically have to people fight about it when that project is proposed. So right now we're fighting, or everyone is disagreeing civilly and with neighborly love on which paths to possibly be on this aspirational map, and it's just hard for that to happen. And it could be a path that everybody lives or dies by, to be number 9 on this map, and then that path may not ever get built in the next decade, or may get, I'm pulling 9 out of my hat, like Dean looks, he's like, well, actually 9, we're going to build it tomorrow. And so I think right now there's probably going to be other paths that fall off the list or have to get remodeled. And so my guess is just pass what we can, and with the knowledge that this list isn't going to be written in stone. That there's going to be amendments to add to a path or possibly take more off in the future. So I agree with just trying to move forward.
Thank you. Jerry, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think a very persuasive case has been made for adoption of the whole. But I'm still troubled by two things. One, I believe this ought to be conditioned either by textual reference or clear reference in the record by a statement, clause, phrase to the effect that this is not, does not have regulatory effect. And secondly, I think the Shelburne Museum segment is very problematic, in which case I couldn't at this time support adoption of the whole.
Okay.
Right.
Can I just say one thing, Jerry?
You have another thing you'd like to?
Yeah, because I apologize that I neglected to mention that my basis for my statements was last Monday, I had the opportunity to attend the Paths Committee meeting, and I was very impressed with probably an hour-long discussion about this. And I saw members of the committee go back and forth and really very thoroughly examine many of the issues that are brought up, and really struggle with what the recommendation that they would want to make. And I think a very strong, well-reasoned recommendation was made by the Path Committee to do a approval of the map as they had presented it. So once again, I will say that while I understand the potential procedure that has been presented here, it still does not honor the work and the opinion of the Paths Committee, who feel that it would be a better option to approve the map as presented initially.
Does anyone else on the board have anything else they'd like to add?
Just that I support everything that the past. They're volunteers. They've given their time and a lot of energy and thought and emotion to this, and the planning commission too. Like, we're all volunteers and we're all trying to do our best. And I don't want to think or have them feel that their efforts aren't supported. But at the same time, we're not a rubber stamp. They're like, this is part of the process, and part of the process is it went through that committee and now it came here, and it came to our attention that there's some paths that there's a problem. And I think that deserves a little bit of extra consideration. So I move that we have a decision item on, I think it's September 13th. Did I hear that as a better?
I think we have.
I won't be here on it.
You won't be here on the 23rd? John is not going to be here on the 23rd. That's the only reason why it's being put off to the 13th. That's the only reason. All right, so go ahead. You finished?
I move to schedule a decision item on September 23rd, select board meeting.
September 13th.
What did I just say? September 20th.
Yeah.
September 13th, select board meeting to consider the motions listed in the annotated agenda, and specifically
A, B,
Yeah.
C, and
A, B, C, D.
do I have to read them all?
No, you don't have
Okay,
to.
motions A, B, C, and D.
Great. Moved by Colleen. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by John. Before we open this up to discussion to everyone here, I just want to echo Colleen. We are very supportive of the work that the Paths Committee has done. I have worked extensively with Rocco, Mark, and Rob Donahue before then, and others on the board. Very supportive of the Planning Commission, but as Colleen said, we're not a rubber stamp, and I do want to point out that this motion is a method for hearing on that meeting on the 13th. Every single path that has been presented to us, but from a practical aspect, it provides an opportunity not to throw out everything should we disagree with one or two of the paths. So open it up to anyone if anyone would like to say anything. Doug? Doug Merrill. Hi, Doug.
Hey, Gary. I'm Doug Merrill. And I sent the Select Board a note about a week ago expressing most of my thoughts. I'm not going to read it word for word, which I'm sure you appreciate. But I did want to mention that, first of all, I think, Colleen, you made some excellent points just now. But the way I heard it, your point spoke very clearly that the path map should be accepted in its entirety for the reasons you spoke, which is that each of these paths, when the day comes that the Paths Committee says we would like to build it, will have its day in front of the Select Board when residents can talk about it pro and con. And hopefully residents will. I think by trying to look at, quote, controversial paths, the paths that we've identified as controversial at this point in time, we're short-circuiting that process. And we're going to begin discussing these paths multiple times. And I'm not arguing that any of these paths on this list, any of the 19 should be built in the next year or in the next 10 years, or shouldn't. I'm just pointing out that the process that the town has used to prioritize the work of the Paths Committee has proven to be very, very effective. There's two specific examples I'd like to talk about. One is paths that are on private property. And Colleen, many of the paths on that list do, as they're drawn on that map, which is usually drawn with a marker, cross private property. If you then open up the town's the plats and things like that, you'll see, well, there may be other options. Instead of going on Shelburne Museum property, we may be able to go on Bostwick Road. We don't know. These paths have not been laid out by a surveyor. They're not at that point yet. So I think we're premature to say we don't want connectivity. The town it'd be premature for the Select Board to say we want no connectivity from the town center to the town beach. We just don't want it. We don't want it because there's a possibility we might want to go across some Shelburne Museum land at some point in the future. So I think that's what we're saying at this point in time, which I think is very short-sighted. No one is saying right now that we have a solution to get from the village to the town beach. We don't have that solution right now. It's not been proposed. Nothing that's been proposed. But I don't think we should strike it out saying we don't ever want to shoot for that. Similarly, I don't think we should shoot out saying we want to go from Boulder Hill up to Hullcrest, which has been, that spine has kind of been an area, a corridor we've been working for almost a decade to connect the Webster Road path to our residents to the north. Right now, there's a big piece of private land, and the landowner is saying, hey, we're not interested in allowing town access. So it's been dormant. But by having that on the priority list, when we had a development off Executive Drive, we knew that we should push for an easement so that we could preserve that access when, at some point in the future, we gained access to that land, if we gain access. So I think it's really short-sighted now to start cherry-picking these projects just because a couple of them have been controversial. I can assure you that if somebody wanted to start going on Front Porch Forum and listing each one of these paths out, saying, did you know that these are on the planning map, we could make all 19 controversial. I think all 19. Maybe there's one or two that wouldn't be. But I'm pretty confident the line along Vermont Rails that goes from Charlotte to South Burlington, there's at least one resident in town that might say, you know, I'm not in favor of that right now. So anyway.
Thanks. Doug. Anyone else have something they'd like to add?
I'll just...
Mike Ashew?
Hi, Mike Ashew. Doug made the case, I think, very well. I think it does complicate the process. I understand some of the difficulties that the Select Board faces, particularly in the case of the Shelburne Museum. But you know, these are aspirational. People are just identifying needs and possible routes that these needs could be met. These are not, as I put it in a letter, actionable. They're just proposed ways to make connections and get to different points. So I think in that spirit, And also to just uphold the process as it's unfolded, they should just be approved as a package. And then the process of actually implementing the paths could then be separated and become another stage in the process, so.
Thank you very
just
much,
urge you to do that.
Mike. Tony Supple? Hi, Tony.
I just want to remind you that the state of Vermont recognizes our town plan as a plan, that the select board, the townspeople have decided this is where they would like to go. It's not an aspirational, a wish list that, you know, we're going to decide in the future. If we put it in the plan, we are saying this is what we plan to do.
Thank you, Tony. If you, please come to the mic. Hi.
Hi, I'm Andrea Bergeron. I'm representing the Shelburne Museum.
Hi, Andrea.
Hi. I just want to say, you know, if the path through the Shelburne Museum is for connectivity purposes to the beach, is there a way just to put the aspiration there instead of putting it through the Shelburne Museum property? So in other words, could we list on the plan what we hope to do for connection without going across private property?
Dean, maybe you can help me out. Would that constitute a substantial change to the proposal, requiring it to go back to the Planning Commission for hearings?
I think the answer is yes.
I think so too.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what it is that the museum, you know, I don't completely understand what you're saying. If it's an edit somehow changing and if it's adding lemons, it would require an additional hearing, and given that you've already started adopting the proposal, I'm not sure that you can change it mid-course, that you have to go through to the end or start the process again.
Basically, so people know, if you make it what's known as a substantial change to any proposal that's been brought from the Planning Commission up to the Select Board for approval, that would be incorporated into the town plan. Once the Select Board makes a decision that this change is made, and if it's substantial, then the law requires it to go back to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission then has to determine what it's going to do before it goes back to the Select Board again. And it might be slightly different than that?
You have 10 days for the Planning Commission to comment.
To comment, okay. So that's where it goes back to the Planning Commission.
Is it substantial to add what Jerry had suggested about making a line somewhere in the introduction of this that this is not regulatory?
Well, I guess you're probably, these are not black and white issues. You're somewhere in the gray area. And Dean, Dean deals with this all the time, so what do you think, Dean?
We're just going to get his own private microphone.
Yeah. My position regarding the aspirational nature of the plan has already been stated. It's written up. I don't see the plan as having regulatory intent. I think that what you might be talking about, if I'm understanding correctly, is adding a language. It probably would be at some other place in the plan that wasn't warned for amendment, so that I think that's problematic. I think the one way to address this issue is that by discussing these issues and having them recorded in the minutes, you are effectively making a legislative history for your action. It would buttress anybody's argument in the future if there was a debate. But my position personally is you don't need to add language to the plan to say that any single item, including the portion of this path that crosses the museum, is aspirational. That's my view.
Thank you, Dean. Anyone else have any comments?
How do you feel about
Jerry, please.
I got a couple of comments.
Sure.
You know, early on in the process, what I wished for was a dotted line. But a dotted line won't do here. It's either a solid line or not at all. Second, I think it's regrettable that that the discussion begins to turn on who values whose work. Without the work and interest of the committee and the commission, we wouldn't be having these discussions. And I think there's plenty of room to respect the fact that a committee tasked with a fairly specific responsibility could have a horizon of understanding a little bit reduced from those of us who sit on this board and see matters in a larger context. And I would be very unhappy if this issue were to be referred to or would turn on a question of who's supporting whom. Because we are all one and a single community, and we are striving here with a very intractable problem to reach a decision that benefits everybody. As a specific in what has changed from the first time we discussed this, we now are aware that as many as 1/3 of the paths cross private property. That certainly wasn't my understanding at the beginning. And finally, to make a comment about Dean's answer, if it's plain that the plan has no regulatory effect, then we shouldn't object to a redundancy by an additional reference. I think the difficulty we're facing here is a question of where does wishful and aspirational and visionary end, and a mark on a paper in a permanent plan that has a body of importance outside any of us and indeed the town. Where does that end? And it seems to me that if the line is not clear and a dotted line on the map won't help, we should err on the most conservative side that protects the town in the most complete way. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. All right, so we have a motion. I'm just going to repeat it so everyone remembers what it was. It was to schedule a decision item for September 13th Select Board meeting to consider the 4 proposed motions listed in the annotated agenda. Everyone's had an opportunity to talk, so let's take the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
All right, passes for September 13th. Hopefully, Joe will be listing a time frame for how long that'll be that evening, and we'll go from there. Mike?
Sorry, I'm not out of order. Isn't the
It's okay.
13th?
If you just use the mic.
I just want to clarify the date. Isn't the 13th 3 weeks from the 23rd?
It's the second and fourth Tuesday of every month is when we meet.
Oh,
So I just
okay.
took my calendar out and saw the 13th is the second Tuesday.
Okay, but that is the correct date?
I'll double check if you want.
Second Tuesday, okay.
Yep.
I thought it was every Tuesday, every second, okay.
No, I'm pretending to check the calendar. I'm watching the game.
Is it 13th? Is it 13th?
Okay.
All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you, everybody, for being nice about it. Okay, next item is our last item, I think, right? And that is to consider entering executive session pursuant to 1 VSA 313 to discuss litigation between Shelburne and Vermont Railway and for the evaluation of a public official. We have 2 motions to make. Would somebody like to make the first one?
3 motions.
3 motions.
So, do you want the premature general public knowledge of the town of Shelburne's litigation strategy regarding Vermont Rail would put the town of Shelburne at a substantial disadvantage.
Second?
Moved by Colleen, seconded by Jerry. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next
Move
motion.
to enter executive session to discuss the town of Shelburne's legal strategy regarding Vermont and invite the town manager.
Second?
Moved by Colleen, seconded by Jerry. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Move to enter executive session to discuss the evaluation of a public official. Are we inviting town
Yes.
manager? And invite the town manager.
Second.
Moved by Colleen, seconded by Jerry, real quickly. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
8:30.